Now, we take a deep breath. You say, how on earth do we live in this crazy world that's so fast we can hardly think? So urban with its profound social and political challenges. So tribal that sometimes it feels like our world is falling into pieces. So universal that sometimes it feels like our own identities and cultures are just being swept away. So radical that tiny numbers of activists seem to be able to wield unimaginable power. Well, the answer is we need ethics, and we need them like never before. They are the bedrock of our future, and by that I mean every passion that there is within you. The reason why you get out of bed in the morning, it could be to do with spirituality, the faith that you have, that sense of ultimate destiny, that sense of responsibility and stewardship, the idea of passing on humankind to another generation, and the world in which we live in a way that's fit to live. Whatever it is that gets you out of bed in the morning, this is what it's all about. And here the question is this. What is the definition of real success? How do we measure that? And now we're back to that video of that guy who was being flown out of like the cannon through that hospital window, who's being driven by a temporary view of success, which clearly was inadequate. And he's one of those many, many people who's just running, achieving success, fame, fortune, a lot of wealth, big cars, huge pension funds, and some accolades from colleagues. And then after a while begins to realize that in his personal life he's been a total failure. None of his children speak to him. He's not on speaking terms with either his former wives. The girl is living with him, doesn't want, and not even sure she wants to live with him anymore. Okay, his score on the golf's pretty good. But he's got questions about what the success really was. And I believe that if education is about anything, it must be about helping people to connect with the passions they have for learning, for achievement, and to make what is important for them happen in their world. This is a British survey, which doubtless you'll tell me has no relevance whatsoever to the United States of America. But it's disturbing nevertheless, because actually I've shown this to many, many international audiences, and most of them say, well, I think you'd have the same in my country as well. You might think the figures would be different here, but I don't think they're that different. We could argue about the percentages in the US, and I don't have an equivalent study. But let me just say this. There's an awful lot of 30 to 40-year-olds that have been through your schools that now want out of business life. 60% in the UK of 25 to 35-year-olds feel unfulfilled in their careers. You know, our oldest son, John, has just got a great job in a new IT startup, doing well, hitting their numbers every week. A meteoric rise, really buzzy. He's been there for 12 weeks, phones me up the other day, says, Dad. I say, hi, John, how are you? Fine. I'm really enjoying life, but I'm thinking of downsizing and getting a life. He's 24 years old, 16 weeks into his first job. My friends, it's a whole generation of people coming at the moment into Harvard, into London Business School to do MBAs from all over the world. In the past, 10 years ago, they just wanted to get onto the board of the corporation. Now, they're not so worried about that. They want to be well off. Yes, they want to have choices, but they want to have a life. They want both, right? The conversation has changed. And one of the reasons it's changed is because of the new obsession with work-life balance. There's a generation growing up who's been there and done that, and they've been through their own relationship problems within their own families, and they've seen it, and they don't want to live through that in their own lives. And they're saying family is really important. Relationships really important. Whatever you mean by family. But people matter. And this is usually about friends and family rather than golf. It's a desire for relationships. And it's in second generation educated people. You do not see this in the first call center operatives in India who are the first generation to go to university. They're hungry to work. But in the second or third generation, they've been there, done that. If Dad was educated at Harvard, he came back to India, he made a pile of money. Those kind of kids have seen through it all. They've moved on. Now, this is really important. Here's another interesting thing. These figures are from the United States, but they're typical of my country, most of Europe, and indeed most of the world. 6 out of 10 Americans work for nothing. Volunteering is booming. The average gift of time given to an organization is 200 hours per year. I calculated that's 20 billion hours per year. If you value each hour as the average wage, that's the equivalent to 12% of the Fed budget or 4.5% of American GDP. That warms my heart. Put your hands up if in the last 2 years you've given time to things that you really believe in, not because you were paid to, but just because you knew you had to do it. Put your hands up. You might be involved in the church, the synagogue, the mosque, goodness knows what, shaking a tin for the tsunami disaster. But this passion is alive. It's strong. And I will learn more about each of you, my friends, over lunch by asking you what it is that you put your hand about. And what's the story? Because there's always a personal story. And I will learn more about you and the real passions that you drive you than I will through 100 years working in your school. In that simple conversation of 3 minutes. And you know what? Those passions are there in almost every parent who sends their kids to your schools. Those passions will be there in every one of your pupils that leave your schools. They're there in every shareholder in America. It's a fundamental part of our genetic code. We cannot help ourselves. There is this intuitive spark within us that wants to be involved in community, which is what these passions are all about. That's why you volunteer. You're giving time to community because you believe it will make the world a better place. And that is an absolutely fundamental part of our educational process, is to help people tune in to these passions that are going to drive them the whole of their adult lives, well into retirement and way into the grave, and maybe far beyond in the legacies that they leave for future generations. This is the hallmark of education. Mature education, I believe, is education which actually puts us right at the very forefront of our bedrock values, because we know that's going to be one of the most important values for them in their future life. Not the grade. It's the passion they have for the causes they want to change. That makes a difference. Now, I'm not devaluing all the other stuff. I'm saying it's just important. So, while, a lot of business is still stuck in a last century time warp, still meandering on with all the rhetoric of shareholder value and bottom line profit and all the rest of it, the conversation is well moved on to personal happiness, work-life balance, relationships, make a difference in the community, and indeed in the wider world. Put your hands up if you have had a heated conversation or a passionate conversation about what the United States of America should do regarding Iraq over the next year. Put your hands up. Now, I have asked this question in many countries around the world, and everyone puts their hands up. Now, I ask a question, but put your hands up if you know someone in Iraq right now. And that's the difference. Because all of you are personally involved. Because all of you are sitting next to someone who knows someone who's there right now. But I want you to know something. I know that even if the US was not so deeply involved in terms of your own families, I know that your hands would still be up. And I'll tell you how I know that. Because in every other country of the world, I ask the same question, the hands go up. And then I ask another question. I say, who here knows someone in Iraq or has got family in Iraq? Most of the countries of the world haven't any, but they're still passionate. I say, what's it to do with you? Mind your own blooming business. Do you know anybody in Iraq? No. Have you got any family members in Iraq? No. Do you know anybody who knows anybody who knows anybody who knows anyone? Anyone near Iraq? No. So why do you get so stirred up about it? The reason, my friends, is because not only are we kind of genetically programmed to care about our own naked self-interest and also the people that we love around us, but also we're genetically programmed to be involved in our communities. We just can't help ourselves. And we are genetically programmed to be global in our outreach in the broadest sense, to have an interest in our wider world, in things which have no immediate relevance even to our communities in which we live. It's just a fact of life. And it's that which more than anything requires us, demands us to be global in the same way in our education. It's not, the world's gone globalized, so we ought to produce a global syllabus and do a few cultural exchange trips. No. It's because it's in the genetic code of everyone we educate anyway, or will be, and will drive their futures. So I believe, in conclusion then, that our slogan for education is this. It's very simple, that we educate for a better world. We educate for a better world for the individual, for their families, for their future, and we educate for a better world for our communities, and we educate because we believe that in doing so we are laying the foundations for a better kind of future for the whole of humanity. We're educating because we believe that the people we educate are history makers, that they will shape the destiny of this great nation and of many others, that they will lay the bedrock and the foundations and the values which will sustain the whole of humankind for the next hundreds of years. The decisions that they make will be talked about for generations, and that, I believe, is a noble calling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. We have a lot to fuel our engines for. We have a 15-minute break back here at 9:45. We are on a tight schedule, but it'll take us a little while to recover. And thank you for your good thoughts. And see everyone back here at 9:45.